Hello everybody, by request of a customer we are going to be taking a look at this knife today. This is the Ittetsu Kurouchi Tsuchime Kiritsuke in 215mm. These guys are made out of Aogami Super at the core with a stainless cladding. Aogami Super core is going to be heat treated to a rockle hardness of I believe 62 to 63. Working our way down, we have an octagonal handle that is walnut and rosewood or maybe ebony on the ferrule. Balance point is right about where you would want it for a pinch grip. A little bit square on the spine here and on the choil. Definitely not sharp and like gonna cut me or scratch me up anyways, but maybe could be like a little bit more round. Fit and finish on the handle feels really, really nice. The install is nice and straight. They're pretty thin at the spine and they're gonna hold that thinness as well behind the edge. I would definitely put these guys in like more of a laser category than a workhorse. I got like a nice big spot here for my finger in the pinch grip. I've got bigger mitts, so I do quite enjoy that. I haven't had a chance to use these guys, so we're gonna give them a test. We've got quite a few things to play around with here. Got some shallots, we can test the detail work. A larger onion is going to show us kind of like the grind in the whole tip portion. We'll see how the food release is on that. Sweet potato obviously is going to test our edge geometry. This guy is really going to test our edge geometry, especially when we do the in half in one swipe. We'll see how that goes. We got some carrots. Of course, these guys are going to help with the geometry and the food release. We'll try like the profile on it with some rocking and with some push cutting. And then we also have a tomato so that we can check the out of the box edge on this guy. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so we're going to give this guy a fair shake, and the first test that we're going to try is going to be the out-of-the-box edge. Doing good so far. Definitely feels a little like a smoother edge. It's not the toothiest, but it's definitely doing it. I haven't even hit this guy on the strop, nothing yet, but it's definitely getting through. So let's, that felt very, very nice. Do the old gauge dice here. See how that goes for us. Obviously a task like this is going to be really nice with the K-tip on this guy. Great for digging in those little spots. Alright, so the tip, doing good. Yeah, the edge is feeling just fine. Really flat profile on this guy, obviously, as you can say about most Kiritsukes. That being said, there are definitely going to be some rocky ones in the bunch, but this is, you know, a pretty standard flat profile. Still a little bit of belly to it. We'll test the rocking out later, but all right. That felt wonderful. All right, so out of the box edge was definitely a pass. Let's get cleaned up here and then we'll move on to some shallots. All right guys, we're back with our shallot. Get this guy cleaned up. Now obviously one of the benefits of a K-tip knife is that they are very, very good for fine tip work with that tip being so flat and low to the board. So we're gonna test that out here. If I could just get this shallot paper off. It's kind of a weird shallot. We'll see how this goes. The horizontal cuts that you guys all love so very, very much. And this guy's a little bit longer, so I'm going to do both here. Alright, that felt great. Obviously the really flat profile is really nice for like that cross cut on these guys, but overall I really, really like that. I'm not super used to the low tip. I don't use Kiritsukes that much myself. I admit I am a Gyuto man. But overall this is feeling really great. Let's get cleaned up and then we'll move on to the big boy shallot. Alright, we are back with our XL shallot. Take off our tip there. I like to remove the nubbin. You don't have to, it's okay. That felt real nice in half. And then I guess I'll do a dice on one half and then a julienne, my second half here. So get these guys cleaned up. Get that one ready for the julienne. And then on this guy, let's see here. Alright, not bad. The food release was really good on that. I will say, even though it's a relatively thin knife, it does hold the thickness like right to the tip. So maybe not like the nicest tip work on an onion I've ever felt. But again, I'm also still not super used to the K-tip, so I can't fault the knife for that too much when that could very well just be my own user error. That felt lovely though. I do understand the appeal of K-tips. They're usually not like the first thing I reach for, but we don't waste onion in this house. No allium gets left behind, except for the pit. I don't want that. All right, this guy, again, this is where I think this knife is really gonna shine. So we can do a little bit of push cut here. That feels fantastic. And then I guess I can do a little tap chop on the shorter half here. Yeah, that felt great. The flat profile, again, a little bit of a different feel for me, but I didn't get any like little stuck together bits. Really good board contact, really nice for that chopping. Tip work, not my favorite on this knife, but the overall like thinness and grind has been really good on the firmer part of the onion so far. Next we'll see how that does on this sweet potato. All right, moving on to our sweet potato. I'm just gonna go ahead and take that ugly little tip off here. And then we'll try some food release with some thin slices. Those aren't stuck together, by the way. That's just really, really good food release. But that feels excellent. Let's get a bit more of a test for the geometry. We'll go in half here. That was not the nicest. This sweet potato feels very, very hard, but I don't know. Let's try that. Try that one more time. I'm gonna blame the sweet potato there because it's definitely not cracking. This guy's just got a lot of tension in it, but honestly, that felt really, really nice. Do a bit more of a like kind of coarse dice here. Okay, a little sticky on the dice. That, however, is not bad at all. Push that over here. That's a later Jake problem. Try that again. That felt real nice. I apologize for all the sniffling, guys. Those onions are getting the best of me right now. I'm gonna try a little bit of rocking with this guy with the sweet here. Now, I always say that Kiritsukes are not great for rocking, and this one being a flatter one is gonna be no exception. It's just like really tall stuff, like that half of an onion would not have been nice to rock over. Stuff like this I can get away with, you know, the shallot I could have rocked over, a bunch of herbs I can rock over, but like even this, I feel like this is getting a little bit less comfortable. I'm starting there, you know? So that's not really like super high, maybe like 1.5 centimeters, 2 centimeters is maybe like the limit for what you're gonna wanna comfortably rock over with this guy. But you can still do it, but this is definitely gonna be more of like that push cut or up and down chop kind of knife. All right, well, we're already doing some root vegetables. Let's go ahead and grab one of these carrots here. One of my favorite tests of a knife is the all the way down in half. And I gotta be honest, after the tip performance on the big onion, that went a hell of a lot better than I thought it would. So maybe the onion was just user error. I'm gonna try that again to make sure. Okay, here we go. Do some quarters here. I've got some chicken stock in my fridge that I boiled down from the Haneske breakdown video that I did earlier this week. Let's try some push cuts here. That feels lovely. These are some pretty hard carrots and like zero resistance going through these guys. Let's try rocking. Okay. Again, maybe not how I would be using this knife, but you certainly can, and the point I'm trying to get across is that it is more versatile than I sometimes make them out to be with the rocking and the push cutting. Even that, like that's a little bit too high. Gets a little bit precarious coming that high. You're gonna bite into your board. But you definitely can still rock with this guy. All right, guys, we are back with the biggest of the tests for today. Butternut squash. Remember, when you are cleaning butternut squash, this part I would not bite through, so we're not gonna cut through that. We're gonna go back about 0.5 centimeter, cut through the soft flesh to get rid of that. Now, normally, to be fair, normally how I would do this is I would cut off the bulb and the stem section, I don't know what that's supposed to be called, and do them separately, but for you guys, let's see what I can do here. Not bad. Not the best, but not bad. Scoop these guys out real quick. All right, guys, I just gave those a quick peel off camera. Normally, I would roast them whole for the way that I'm gonna kind of be using them. But I wanted to dice it up and show you guys the grind a little bit better on these guys anyhow. So go ahead and separate these. There we go, that felt real nice. I'm going to cube these up, I'm going to roast them off, and then I'm actually going to use these kind of like blended into a Japanese curry base, kind of somewhere between a butternut squash soup and a Japanese curry. Pretty excited for that. That felt real nice. I'm just doing a rough chop here. Again, I'm just going to roast these off and then they're all going to get blended up when I'm done with them. So, nothing too fancy here. Yeah, that tip, not the thinnest tip in the world, if I'm being completely honest with you. But that does also imply that this knife is not going to be a super delicate knife, which isn't a bad thing. This guy might just be a little bit more of a workhorse than I was kind of assuming, but. And if it is kind of in that workhorse territory, that's not a bad thing because it is Aogami Super with a stainless cladding, which was my daily driver when I was working in professional kitchens. So if that's you, this might be right up your alley for a knife that you don't have to be, you know, the most dear with, but it's still going to get you through those root veg prep days. Nope, I don't like that. That's a bad idea. There we go. It could very, very much be as well that with the K-tip that I'm not super comfortable with. I know I harp on and on and on about using more lateral motion, and sometimes I don't do the best job. And this shape for me is not the most intuitive to use more lateral motion with certain types of cuts. But let's try the, oh, no, yeah. Little sticky. That feels really nice up by the tip when I'm doing that, and I am forcing myself to use a little bit more lateral motion. Alright, so the testing portion of this video is over. What did this knife do really well? Of course, anything that was that kind of push cut or cross cut where you had a little bit more room when I was going across the onions, the shallots, when I was push cutting the carrots, it did a fantastic job. The food release on the sweet potato was honestly a lot better than I was expecting it to be. The cross cut of the sweet potato, again, thin at the spine, felt great going through that. The Aogami Super Core is going to have a great mix between edge retention and sharpenability. The stainless cladding is going to make it a little bit easier to care for. It's going to keep it looking clean and presentable. It's nice and light and well balanced, which means those long prep shifts are going to feel like a breeze, and it's definitely not going to tucker you out, you know, swinging around some big like 240, 270 workhorse. It did, again, struggle a little bit with the butternut squash. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think that was a bit of a skill issue. I think when you're using a more traditional profile knife like this, that the belly of the blade almost adds a bit of a skew to the angle of the knife on a cut and gives you some lateral motion even when you don't have the best lateral motion as a bit of a safety net. So one more time, guys, this has been the Ittetsu Kurouchi Tsuchime Kiritsuke in 215mm. Let us know what you want to see next, and until next time, stay sharp.